All right, guys. We're here to do solving system graphically. I'm going back to what we did here when we did the graph, but today we're going to do it using a calculator. All right. So if you do remember, we did this problem right here. This started right here with these two equations. And to do it graphically, we had to solve for y for in each of them. And then we had to graph, and we found that the solution to this should have been that -1 comma -4, and this is what the graph looked like. So right now what we're going to do is going to show you how you can do this in your graphing calculator. So let's get our graphing calculator right here. And I'm going to input our two equations. So anytime you use a graphing calculator, you need to solve for y. So y. In y1, I'm going to put in x minus 3. And in y2, we're going to put in 7x plus 3. First, you got to check that your mode, see the mode right here? Do you see right here where it says function? One more down. This says function. You got to be in function. I believe last time we were at parametric right here, and it probably looked like this. So we need you to move over to function and hit enter. All right, so we have our two equations. Since I want everybody to start at the same pace, hit zoom in 6, which is your standard window. And here's the first equation. That's the x minus 3. Here's the 7x plus 3. And you see that there's the intersection is right there. But we're going to let the calculator give me that intersection. The only thing that you have to do is that make sure that you see the intersection on your screen. Sometimes when you do that, if you can't see this intersection, then you would have to use the zoom button, and you need to go down to 0, which is a zoom fit, hit enter, and it will automatically give you a window where you can see the actual graphs. But since I already know the intersection is at -1, -4, I'm just going to go back to my standard window just to make it a little bit bigger. That's all. All right, so here are my two equations. I want the calculator to give me this intersection right here. And in order to do that, I need to do some calculations. So this is above the trace key. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit second and trace. And as you see here, we have an option for number 5, which is intersect. So we're going to move down to number 5 and hit enter. So there's three things that we need to do. First, you should look over here, say, hey, look, you're on the first equation, and it's blinking on that first equation. What I like to do is I like to get closer to the intersection. Doesn't matter. And down here it says first curve. You see it? Is this the first equation? Hit enter. Is this the second equation? Hit enter. I don't have to get close. I like to do it, but you don't have to. Then it says to guess. I'm not going to guess. I'm just going to hit enter. And as you see, it says intersection at x to be -1, y to be -4. So this is one way of doing this problem, is that you can hit y equals, plug in your two equations, graph it. You can do the graph button. It do your standard window. If you can't do it, hit zoom 0, which means to zoom fit it to see the intersection. And then just do second trace to calc, go to intersect and hit enter 3 times, and you get your intersection. Now, there is another way of doing this without solving for the y equals, and that actually goes back to the standard right here to this. But it has to be in this format, ax plus by equals to c, where the variables x, y, and then c. So let me show you this. Let me quit this guy right here, second quit. In your calculator, there is an apps button. And I need you to go down to an application right here, just to show it to you. I need an application that is called Poly Simultaneous 2. I call it polysim 2. Once you find it and it's highlighted, hit enter. And it says here, okay, we have two things, number 1 and number 2. You have your root finder to find the zeros, or the equation solver. Since I want to solve these two equations, I'm going to go down to number 2. And you can read about the about and give you the help to see how you should enter things. But it's not that complicated. If you hit 2, then hit enter. All right, so now we have some things we need to talk about. It's asking you, how many equations do you have? Well, I only have 2 equations. If I have 3, I go to 3. If I have 4, I go to 4, so on and so forth. So I have 2 equations, and how many unknowns, how many variables? So I only have x and y. So I'm going to keep it on 2, 2. Everything else is self-explanatory. Keep it on auto, normal, degree. If you see here, you see main, help, and exit. These correlates to these buttons underneath them. So main is the y equal. Your next is the graph. Your help is your trace button. So since I chose 2 and 2, I'm going to go to the next step. So I'm going to hit graph. Okay, so now you see something like this. It depends on the model calculator that you have. As you see, I'm now going to put in, it has your x and your y and your equals. You see how the formula is already there. So I have to now just putting in the coefficients. For the first problem, I have a coefficient of 1. So I'm going to hit 1, enter. As you see in this one, this calculator, it goes automatically to the plus sign. Do you see it? Now you can keep it plus and put a negative out here for the y, or you can change this plus to a minus, hit enter, and then the coefficient of the y is 1, and then I got 3. Now in others format, you just put in the coefficients like 1, -1, and 3. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing for the second one. I have a coefficient of 7 minus, okay, that stays the same, 1, and I got -3. All right, so now this system looks like what I have over here. And again, I look at these things. I got main, mode, clear, load, or solve. Well, I want to solve this thing, so I better hit the graph button. And as you see, it tells me that the intersection at x to be -1 and y to be -4. Now, if this was a decimal, you can change it to a fraction. There's a button right here, fraction to decimal. You can store it or a system, or you can go change the mode. But if you want to do another problem, you go back to the main, and then you start the process again. I like to quit the app because I'm not using it anymore. So I'm going to go to number 6, and it quits the app for me. So that's all basically there is to solving using a graphing calculator. First, you would have to, if you want to use the y equals button, you have to solve both equations to y equal. Then you do your second trace, go to your intersect, hit enter 3 times. Or you can do the apps program that has the polysim 2 and do your 2 by 2 or 3 by 3 or whatever. And it will give you the solution in that manner. All right, so try a couple of problems on your own, and I'll talk to you pretty soon. Bye.